Hi folks, it's just me again, coming to you again from the camper. It's nice and quiet here. There's a lot of activity inside the house, people coming and going, so I prefer someplace a little more quiet. Anyway, let's get this started. I've posted other videos regarding the visions that I've seen and the Bible support regarding who is going to get raptured when that time comes. And you can check the past videos. This is mainly for the new subscribers who haven't seen any of the past videos. But if you go back, you can see the rapture cloud. And there's other videos too that I posted a year ago about who I believe is going to get raptured. And it sits well with me. The legalists, they always got something to say, because the legalists, they're focused on just a few verses of the Bible, and they haven't bothered to think about the entire Bible. And some of the legalists haven't even read the entire Bible, which is sad for them. So, again, for you who are listening to this, I would suggest you read the entire Bible. Because, as you know, we're called to be just like Jesus. And we are being authored into His likeness every day. But if you want to be exactly like Jesus, or if you want to be close to Jesus as you can, to be like Him, then I would suggest knowing the Bible that He knew. And the Bible that Jesus had memorized and knew by heart is our Old Testament, including the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, written by Moses, plus all the books of the prophets, the Psalms, Proverbs, all the poetry, and the stories of Israel as they grew into a nation. So please read the whole Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, because that also will help to solidify your position of authority that you will be given during the 1,000 years of peace. The more of the Bible you know, the more knowledge you will have, and the more you will prove to God that you want to be just like Jesus. Plus, when you know the whole Bible, the Holy Spirit can bring to mind some verse somewhere that is relevant to your situation, that will either encourage you or help you in some way, or support you, or lift you up. So, let's get this started. Who is going to be raptured? Now, I have to start off by quoting again, and I always fall back on Acts 2:17, or Acts 2:16 to 20. Acts 2:16 to 20. And that verse says that in the last days, God is going to pour out His Spirit of prophecy on all flesh. That means everybody is going to get bits and pieces of a prophetic vision of the future to come, either be it the far future or the near future. But the Bible also tells us that the Spirit of prophecy is subject to the prophet. And I mentioned that before, that if a non-believer gets a vision of prophecy, they can only interpret it with the knowledge they have. And if it's a non-biblical knowledge, they will interpret it in a non-biblical way. But I'll make a whole nother video about that. Or you can go back and check a video that I made a couple of years ago. I think it's called Hollywood Prophets, and how they've interpreted the Bible. But anyway, let's get on with who is going to be raptured. Now, based on the spirit of prophecy being poured out on all people, you will have noticed that there's a lot of Christians out there that are mid-trib Christians. They believe that the rapture is going to happen either in the middle of the tribulation or towards the end of the tribulation, because there's a pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib kind of rapture interpretation. And I will say that all 3 of them are right. Because if you read the Bible, you will see that there are rapture experiences or bodily regeneration that happens throughout the whole tribulation period. So we are all right, because I believe that a lot of the church, or a large minority of the body of believers, are going to be raptured at the beginning of tribulation. And as we know, the Bible also tells us that there are a certain amount of believers that have to go through the tribulation in order to be martyred. So there's going to be a rapturing of the body of believers that have to go through the martyrdom, which is about the middle of the tribulation. And if you go to the end of tribulation, there's also the 2 witnesses that have to be raptured as well. So all the body of believers have seen part of the future, and that is the rapturing experience, but they all interpret it in their own way. The mid-trib believes the whole church is going to have to go through the tribulation and then be raptured, when in fact it is only part of the church that has to go through the tribulation. And those are the lazy, selfish Christians that go to church just for a show, those who are there for their own selfish reasons. They're not there to get to know the Lord. So they will have to go through the tribulation and be martyred in order to prove their love for the Lord. Whereas you faithful virgins who are hanging in there, you will be spared from the hard times. So you will be raptured before the major part of tribulation starts. So it all depends on how we interpret the spirit of prophecy that we've been given. So a lot of pre-tribbers have seen the tribulation, have seen the rapturing before the tribulation, and so on with the mid-trib and post-trib. So now, who is going to be raptured? It's not just the body of believers. It's not just the bride of Christ. There are going to be other people raptured as well, and I will get into details of that. But first, I have to start with the preamble, and that comes from Isaiah 33, verse 22, and it says, "The Lord is our judge. The Lord is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king. It is he who will save us." And we know that that is Jesus. So Isaiah was talking about Jesus being the judge. He knows the hearts and the minds of all people that are on the face of the planet. And if you read the Old Testament, you will see that God deals with three kinds of people, three kinds of humanity. He deals with the wicked and sinful people. He deals with the lost and the hurting, and he deals with his servants. So the wicked people, they will get their due punishment because of their willful choices. The lost and the hurting will be saved out of the compassion and mercy of God, because as you know, we read throughout the whole Testament, God says he will have compassion on whom he will have compassion, and he will have mercy on whom he will have mercy. That means he gets to choose, as well as Jesus the lawgiver and the judge. They will both get to choose who gets raptured and who gets left behind. So I believe, and again it's supported by verses in the Bible that talk about the other flock. There are two groups of people that are going to be raptured. That is Jesus' main flock, that is you wise virgins, that is those who have dedicated their lives to serving the Lord, to being his hands and feet down here, to encouraging the body of believers, to helping out the people in the world, to helping the lost and the hurting. That is the main flock. And the other flock will also be raptured as well. They may not go to church, they may not read the Bible, but in their hearts, they know that there is a God, and they do their best to live as righteously as possible. They still make mistakes, but these people are the consecrated people, and these people are the sanctified people. They're consecrated and sanctified because of you wise virgins who have dedicated your lives to praying for the lost and the hurting, to praying for your families. And your families, as the Bible also says, if you call upon the name of the Lord, you will be saved, you and your household. That is, you and the members of your family. And we're all praying for those other people as well. So I believe God will have mercy and compassion on those people who are in the other flock. And specifically, who are those in the other flock? Those would be the people who have the law of God written on their hearts. And there are verses in the Bible that talk about that too. I've got that written down. Blah, 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 blah. Jesus knows. Oh yeah, that is Romans 2:14. I've got all these notes all over the place. But if you go back to the other videos, I've actually printed the verses on the screen. So you can read them there. But I will just find these verses as I come along. So the other flock are the real common, good, decent people that have lived on the face of the planet since Adam and Eve. From that point on, up until the rapture. And the legalists will say, oh, you have to call upon the name of the Lord Jesus in order to be saved. Which is true for us in the modern age, and for those people who know of the Bible and have heard of the Bible, and those people who know of the church and going to church. Those are the people that verse is specifically meant for. if those sinners out there know that they should be calling upon the name of the Lord in order to be saved, and they reject that, then that's their responsibility. That's their they'll be suffering the consequences of their actions, which is sad, because they'll have to go through the horrors of the tribulation. But I'm also speaking about specifically the people on another continent, the people in Australia, the people in deepest, darkest Africa, the people in Asia, the people in North America, the people in South America in the BC era, and even those people in those continents when Jesus was walking around. There's no possible way they could ever have heard of anyone called Jesus. There's no way they could have ever heard of the Bible. So there's no way that they can call upon him in order to be saved. And a legalist will say, well, that's their problem. They're going to hell because they didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I will just turn around and say, God has compassion on whom he will have compassion. And the same with Jesus. Jesus knows the hearts and the minds of all the people that have ever lived throughout any century, throughout any continent. He knows the good people that have lived in South America and North America and all those other places throughout all the centuries. They may not have had the Bible, but there are always a group of people that obey the law of the village. They obey the law of the land. They obey the laws of the household, the rules of the household. There are all those people that always disobey it. There are always those people that are selfish and all those people that are cruel and violent. And Jesus knows the good people from the bad people.